Have you ever felt like there's something more to life than what you're currently doing?
Do you see the world differently than everyone around you?
Do you ever dream of achieving big things but feel stuck? We're Tiffany and Sid, and we are the Cycle Breakers.
Not long ago, no one believed in us.
The people closest to me said I'd make a great receptionist.
And mine completely abandoned me and left my life.
We started our journey 5 years ago in a basement.
Now, we live our dream life in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. But how did we get here?
We saw a life that was much better than the one we were living.
And broke through the blocks that hold most people back.
Like self-sabotage, crippling self-doubt, and the fear of rejection. But we knew we were made for more, so we bet on ourselves to make the life that we wanted.
And jumped into a life dedicated to breaking old cycles and patterns.
And now we live on 97 acres in the Smoky Mountains. We travel the world speaking on stages, and we help a small army of people break their cycles as well.
We're the Cycle Breakers, and we break through blocks that are holding most people back so we can go live our dream life.
Welcome to the Cycle Breakers Show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of the Cycle Breakers Show. We are super excited to have you here with us today. I am your co-host, Tiffany Toombs Clevinger, and I'm joined by my amazing husband,
Sid Clevinger. What's up, everybody?
And today we are going to be talking about why there is this massive awakening, this massive shift towards breaking the cycle and doing the inner healing work and stepping into your truth and your power and potential.
Yippers.
So
it's funny because I guess there's a lot more now than it used to be. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm older. I don't know. But it just seems now like there's just this massive exodus into screw this past life that I walked in, that I was living. I know there's another side. I know there's another way. And I don't know I know you've probably seen it because you're queen bee over here. But yeah, I've totally seen this massive exodus of just screw, I don't want to say screw society, but screw this programming that we've all had, for so long now. And I'm ready to enter a better life. I'm ready to enter something that's a lot more, peaceful and better and happier that I've been wanting for so long.
yeah, it's interesting. One of the byproducts, I think, and what I've personally experienced and what I've seen in so many other people is that as people start breaking the cycle and they start unlearning what they've learned, there's a movement away from the material goods, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like the cars and all of that stuff. Where when you're in trauma, when you're in survival mode, it tells you we need to hoard material goods, right? To prove we're good enough, but also to get the validation, but also to be safe. And as there's this whole shift in society really towards homeschooling and homesteading. And, I've never heard so many people talking about wanting chickens and,
There's so many shows now, you got what, HGTV and the Magnolia Network. And it's at least I know Magnolia Network has a show called Building Off the Grid. It's on 11 episodes and 11 seasons. And what's crazy about it is I'm pretty sure that it really had its uptick right around COVID. So it makes me wonder really if that was almost kind of the breaking point for a lot of people where they were just kind of screw this. I'm going to do it my own way.
Yeah. So I think COVID, as much as it was, something that nobody ever wants to experience again, COVID was necessary towards this great awakening that's happening. Because pre-COVID, there was a wealth of things that people could distract themselves with, right? They could go to the gym, they could go to the bar, they had the busy life that stopped them from ever sitting with their stuff. And when COVID came, now we're locked down in our houses for at least 2 weeks, some places for months or almost a year.
Jesus, and thinking about that makes me shiver.
we weren't going out, people weren't leaving their house to go to work. People
Yeah.
weren't able to take their kids to school. Kids' sports stopped, bars closed down. Like all of the distractions just literally overnight came to a complete halt. And the thing with that is when we are busy, our unconscious mind, when even though it might still try in those busy moments to like bring up stuff for us to start to navigate, like maybe when you're stuck in rush hour traffic or whatever, but it's really easy to ignore it when we've got all the busy things. But when
Yeah.
you've only got like the silence and the stillness, you don't have all the busy stuff, it really comes up. And we saw like within the first 24 hours of lockdowns, calls to suicide hotlines increased by 800%.
That's
Right.
insane.
And so that was just in the first 24 hours. So now people are literally unable to avoid ignoring their unconscious mind and all of the stuff that it's wanting to come up and release, because the unconscious mind does. Combine that with a greater understanding of how trauma gets stored in the body, how it negatively impacts us. I mean, back in the 90s, so like 30 years ago, people thought that we were thinking beings who had these annoying emotions. These are scientists who thought this, who had these annoying emotions that got in the way of our cognitive abilities. But now we know we're emotional beings who think. And so, the science, the neuroscience, and understanding of how like things like meditation and mindfulness and healing positively impact us, understanding how holding on to trauma and emotional baggage literally makes us sick, right? We have so much more understanding, we have more tools, and then we had this global event happened that really kind of tipped us over the edge
Yeah.
into having to look at it.
It was almost like for me, like now that you talk about that, it was almost kind of like it was insulation. Like I would add insulation or like stuffing. So like I would have like, I mean, we've talked about on this show, like some of the stuff that I've personally been through and the betrayal through family that I've personally been through and that you went through kind of alongside us, and Chad too, although he's luckily was too young to even probably remember. But it, like I always kind of looked at it as I would add padding. So like the things that I would jump into, I felt like I was jumping into all this new stuff all the time. And, I think some people, some people look at it as validation. I think you even said that a couple times. It was for validation of like, well, I believe that I want this perception that I believe that I want. But now looking back at it, I saw that I was literally just stuffing myself with insulation, aka bandages. So like I couldn't feel the hurt. I couldn't feel, I was running away from going through what was going to get me through to the other side instead of healing the wound or healing the trauma or healing the baggage that I was carrying and being able to actually take it off. I mean, I remember people tell me all the time, just let go of the backpack. Just drop the backpack. And I'd look at them and be like, I have no clue what you're talking about. Can you take a step further, please? And they would just look at me and say, and I think for me, it was like, actually, okay, you actually have to take away the insulation, face like, what's going on. But when you get through that, right, you actually are able to run toward not only breaking the cycle, but run toward everything that you want, because you're not carrying or protecting yourself from what it is that is truly foundationally hurting you to begin with. At least it was for me.
Yeah. And so, there's this, more people are talking about it as well, about their own healing journey and sharing their stories, which when we share our stories of like, hey, I've been through this too, it lets people know that they're not alone, but then it empowers people to find the courage to dig into their own stuff and to say, you know what, if you can make it through, I can too. And so that's the power of sharing stories. And we're going to be sharing a lot of stories of cycle breakers on this show, so that it's not always just you and me, but it's, hey, other people have done it too. And if this person started here, like the cool thing about our unconscious mind is it doesn't know the difference between you and me. So if I hear you sharing your story and you have a similar story to me, maybe you started in a similar position, or, you know, you had similar experiences in childhood and you've overcome it, that tells my unconscious mind that I can do it as well, which is really powerful.
Yeah.
And so, you know, then we also understand like the impact of generational trauma. It's interesting, like as we were, you know, going through the process of having Chad back when I was pregnant, I remember like your mom and my mom would say things like, oh, well, we did this with you and you turned out fine. And like I hear that from so many people. Well, my kid went to public school and they turned out fine, or my kid had, you know, this and we didn't do this, or we didn't gentle parent, or we didn't do this and they turned out fine. But the thing is like, what's fine? Like I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on healing and therapy and like, you know, is that fine? You know, I was probably a functioning alcoholic at one point in my life, and I did all sorts of things in my life to try and find validation. You know, I was an overachieving workaholic, perfectionist, people pleaser, like, you know, hated myself. Was that fine? Like, I really think that moving forward, like the millennial generation is really the one that is taking these tools and this information and saying, you know what, enough is enough. We're not going to keep repeating this cycle. And I'm going to take this information and the tools that I have, and I'm going to heal myself and make it different. Like I'm going to break the generational trauma patterns, because, you know, being fine doesn't cut it anymore. I don't want to be fine. I don't want Chad to just be fine in his life. I want Chad to have the tools that he needs to thrive. I don't want Chad to live in survival mode. I want him to be able to, you know, for inner peace and joy and gratitude and happiness to be his default mode, not stress addiction, not anxiety, right? Like we look at society right now is the most overweight, in debt, medicated, disconnected, you know, addicted that it's ever been. Well, you know, maybe we should stop saying that things are fine, because
Do you think
I don't
fine though? Do you think like people say fine, or like I just want to be fine, like because fine is like safe for a lot of people? Because like if I'm fine, like if we were to look at this on a scale, and it was like, okay, so if I'm fine, I'm not getting everything that I want, but I'm fine, so I'm gonna settle. But at least I know if I settle, then like I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that because this is how I felt when I would go through this. Well, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. All I was doing was putting myself in a cage. So it was almost kind of like, you know, we could talk about this for days in regards to society, but it was like I was just getting enough to get by and know that I was going to just get by forever. But I was never actually going to take the leap and be like, screw just getting by, screw just getting fed enough, screw just being happy enough. I was finally going to say, no, I'm going to get all the happiness I want. I'm going to get everything that I deserve. You know what I mean? Like for just understanding that being here makes me, like being here and giving a crap. Like, I don't want to get into like every, participation trophies and all that. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is though, is that just you being alive means that you deserve happiness. And it took me a long time to realize that I deserve to pursue happiness. And what's crazy about that is it's in our freaking like United States, like saying Constitution, whatever that is, the pursuit of happiness. Oh, it's in the national anthem. It's like the pursuit of happiness. We have the right as human beings living here, right, for the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't mean we're going to be happy for being alive, but we have the right to the pursuit of that. And it's almost like I feel like a lot of people in the world have forgotten that like you have the right, you have the ability to go out there and be as happy as you want, live the happy, be as excited and, like really grab whatever it is you want out of life. But I feel like a lot of what, a lot of the programming and a lot of the things that we've been around for so long. I mean, I told you about The Hangover was on the other day, and some of the things, how they, bleeped out certain words that in society are not acceptable anymore. But then like when they came to like, GD or gee damn, you know, like it was literally like all, you know, it said 20 times in the movie. And that's just an example of programming that continues to happen. And, you know, and it's crazy because I feel like now people have been programmed to forget that they have that right to pursuit of, we have a pursuit of happiness that we can strive every single day if we want to wake up and we want to grasp it.
Yeah, I mean, I think society has done a really good job at programming us to just aim for survival, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't aim too high is really the message, or don't be too good is really the message that so many of us get. Like in Australia, they have this saying about the tall poppy syndrome. Like, you don't want to grow too much above others. You don't want to stand out too much because somebody will come along and lop your head off, right? Like,
Mhm.
you don't want to be the tallest poppy in the flower bed because then somebody will come and just like cut the bloom off. And so
Tallest
it's like,
poppy. Tallest poppy. It just sounds funny. Sorry.
right? Like,
Tallest poppy.
but it's this programming of like, don't be too good. Don't thrive too much, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
supposed to work 40, 60, 80 hours a week, Monday to Friday, to live for the weekend. You're supposed to work 50 weeks of the year to enjoy. You can be happy on Saturday and Sunday and your 2
Mhm.
weeks of paid vacation a year, and that's it. And
That's
now people are
insane.
like,
Like I think about that now, and that's just insane to me.
you
Like
know,
it
or
literally sounds like prison.
or you start working at a young age, right?
Yeah.
I started, my first job was at 14, and you work until you're 65. Now it's like 70, right? We're creeping up towards 70. You work all the way until you're 70. And then, only then, after you've worked like the majority of your life, then can you actually, enjoy what you have left. But by that time, because of all the crappy food that we've stuffed in your face and, all the stress that you've had to
That's so
endure
true. I swear they're poisoning our food. I swear they're
from,
poisoning our food. Yeah, sorry, I could go on a
you know,
tangent about that, but I'll stay
from the
quiet.
medications to the
Yeah.
food to the stress to the working a job you hate to the, constant recessions every 10 years, whatever it is, you're probably going to be sick and not really like, why wouldn't we encourage 20-year-olds to go out and just like live their best life before they start working? Because they have the energy and the capability to, right? Like, why
Yeah.
do you have to wait until you're 70 to make memories? You might not even make it there,
It's
right? But
crazy.
that's
Yeah,
what
I mean,
society
what
has taught
is
us.
the average age? I think, well, it's different for male and female. I think female is a little bit older, but you're talking about what? You get like 7 years, you know? And the thing is like now it's gotten, at least in America, I know there's probably people listening to this outside of America, and in a way, I envy you. But you know, like in America, like a lot of people now that are 70, I mean, it's a mess. I mean, we could talk about this for hours and days, but it's a mess. But I mean, like now it's like, are you even happy when you retire? How many times about, you know, you and I, we like get something for Chad, like we don't grocery shop at Walmart, but we go to Walmart, you know, like if we're like getting like Chad, you know, like clothes or, you know, like whatever. And I know we live out here. Like, I mean, I know for some of you that are listening to this, you realize that, like, yes, we're on 97 acres. Yes, we're right next to the Smoky Mountain Park. However, we're only about 15 minutes from a Walmart. So we're not like out there, like cray out there. Okay. Um, but uh, but like, you know, I'd go there, and I know you've probably seen this too. And there's 75-year-olds that are working. You know, they got these minimum wage jobs, and it's sad to me. Like, it's really sad. Like, I was in Orlando speaking at an event last weekend or the weekend before last. And, you know, like we had this conversation of kind of with one of the guys there. And I was like, sometimes I feel like I just walk around and either I'm an alien and I'm looking at people and just like, what are you doing? Or I'm like the one that just refused to fall for, you know, like all of this societal programming crap, and was like, you know, I'm going to stay true to what it was like when I grew up, which is crazy to me because I used to hear my grandpa say this. You know, like the world's changing so much, which makes me feel like I'm getting old. I don't know. But like I just wouldn't fall for that. And then I feel like I'm walking around in a sea of aliens or a sea of zombies, to be honest with you, after reading Outwitting the Devil, like, you know, an absolute sea of zombies that's just like so caught in this like just backwards, like, you know, hypnotic rhythm of where they're just numb and they're doing everything they can to stay numb instead of going out there and being all that they can be, going out there and really breaking the cycle of this crap that they're stuck in and getting to do everything that they wanted to do and have wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah, and so I think, you know, now that now there's this awakening, like our generation, the millennials are really starting to say like, wait, this doesn't make sense. Like, why would I work for 50 years to enjoy 7? Right? And
Mhm.
then even if I can even retire by that point with inflation and everything else, right? Like that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to start living life on my terms. I'm not going to chase the cars and, you know, the big fancy houses and, you know, the brand name clothes. Like I want space. I want freedom. And
Well, you know, it's
that's
funny that you
ultimately
say
what
that.
breaking the cycle is about.
You've said cars and houses and stuff like that, which is interesting because when I grew up, that was what I wanted, right? I walked
That was what you
around
wanted
and
when I
like,
met you.
yeah, like, you know, so only 6 years ago, right? But like when we met, had the Maserati. It's not a Lambo, it's not a Ferrari, but it's definitely a tier up, right? It's a nice car. You know, we lived, you know, at the top of a couple of buildings when we met, you know, like we were on the 22nd floor, right across the street from American Airlines Arena, downtown Dallas. We used to walk we went to a Stars game. We literally walked 2 blocks, right? And like that was the life that I wanted. And then like I wanted this life of like, if I have this, then I'm somehow more powerful than if I didn't have that. And it was this like, you know, I had the Rolex watches, you know, like I had the name brand. I mean, I had this ridiculous belt that I used to wear from Gucci. I thought I was like the man when I had that belt on because I think I saw it on a Bravo TV show of like the $1 million listing LA. So in my mind, I was like, if I got this belt, like I'm ready for $1 million listing LA, right? So I had like all of this like stuff.
You had a bigger shoe collection than I did too.
I think I still do. But you know, I had all this stuff, and it was crazy. Is like I have this shoe collection now, but let's be real. Like I only wear like really one pair of shoes anymore, and that's my Hey Dudes. So anyway, which are like the most comfortable shoes ever. Like people like want to make fun of like the what are the
This
clogs
is not a
or
sponsored ad.
yeah, I know it's not a sponsored ad, but like Hey Dudes, those things are jamming. All right, so like, you know, we had all that stuff and like looking back, that was like a real big anchor point in my presentation that I did in Orlando was like I had all these pictures. I had these pictures of people I used to stand next to, Rob, you know, and not that these are bad people. It's just like they didn't remember my name 10 minutes after I got a picture with them. But like Robert Herjavec from, you know, Harrington from Kevin Harrington, Robert Herjavec, Brian Tracy, like, you know, like the list goes on and on and on and on, you know, of all these people that I was standing next to, the car that I was standing next to, the views that I had outside my window. But what was crazy was I also had a picture of actually what was going on when I had all this stuff. And it was me with a blunt outside of the window where I used to stare out into Dallas. And I used to do it every night. And the reason and I did it every single night because even though I had all this stuff, I hated myself inside. And I knew personally that I was on a house of cards or a house of sticks with no foundation because inside I hated myself. And I knew that it was just going to take one little blow of anything that was going to knock it over. And so I literally would numb myself from that feeling of hating myself and numb myself from that feeling. And it really took being able to, again, like I talk at maybe a little bit more, like I know you get geeky. I don't get as geeky as you, but I mean, like I look at it as like foundational, right? Like I had to fix foundational pieces of myself, which comes down to one thing for me was how I felt about myself. As many people on here at one time or another can honestly probably tell themselves that they didn't like themselves that much, or they were upset at where they were in life, or they didn't think they had enough, or whatever that might be. the million thoughts that go through the negative thoughts, what is it? Over 60%, 80% of of thoughts that cross our minds every day are negative. So like I was in that to where I was probably at like a 98% of my thoughts. I didn't think positive about myself at all. I was just waiting on the hammer to come down most of the time. So what did I do at night? I had all this stuff, but by golly, right? I numbed myself out with marijuana, with alcohol, with addictions to so many other things. And that was the only way that I could survive, because if I didn't have that, I would have been a crying, weeping mess. And I was a few times when I tried to break it back then. If you remember out by the pool, if you remember, like a couple of absolute like blow-ups that I had. And it was just because I literally had no control internally, no control in my mind or understanding in my mind. And it got to a point where it made me sick, literally sick and physically sick. Like not just, I'm, sick in the mind, physically sick. And, yeah, I had to go through that. I don't wish anybody to go through that, but I had to go through that. But once I went through that and saw the other side, it was just like, well, screw this. Like, I want that. I want to break the cycle. I want to go to the other side because I know going to the other side is going to help me feel better. Now it's just completely different. And I think you would agree. Like, it's calm. I don't feel like a bear's chasing me 24/7. Like, I just wake up and I'm like, I actually like this. Life is good. I mean, I don't know. That's how I feel here. But like it's just a completely different feeling because it's just this feeling of peace and calm that I really wish on everybody that listens to this, because it's there. You have to take the first steps to get there.
Yeah. So if you're listening today and you have been wanting to go on the journey, welcome. Welcome to.
Welcome. We're glad you're here.
And if you are already on this journey, then just know that, you're really a pioneer. I know it feels like everybody is in this cycle breaking journey, but there's like 8 billion people in the world. And we're really still at the beginnings of this healing transformational journey. So welcome. We're so glad to have you here. If there's ever a topic that you want us to cover on this show, please send us an email or a message and let us know, and we will happily cover it. If you are enjoying what you're hearing in this show and you're excited for the interviews that we have coming, because we have some amazing interviews coming, make sure that you leave us a 5-star written review. The way that the podcast platforms decide who gets promoted on the podcast pages and who ranks in the charts is by the number of reviews that they have, positive reviews. So share this episode with somebody, leave us a 5-star
only if you liked it. Only if you liked it. But
leave us a 5-star written review. I'm confident that you will like it. So leave us a 5-star written review on the platform that you're listening to, and we will be back again soon with another episode of the Cycle Breakers Show.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Cycle Breakers, where this channel is all about helping people clear out the blocks that are holding them back. We have a free gift for you, and that free gift is called our 7-Day Nervous System Reset. The 7-Day Nervous System Reset is where we help you calibrate your nervous system so you can go out there and control your emotions and start to take more control of your life, helping clear the blocks that are holding you back so you can start stepping into that dream life. It's absolutely free, and you can grab it down here in the description. And remember, our friends, let's dare to heal.